Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game and has just realised that Palace's next match is against Brighton. I'm Kevin Day, occupier of football's moral high ground, and he is Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire, Brighton fan. How are you, Kieran?
I'm good. Can I suggest that we record the podcast before the match takes place?
I think that's a very good idea, and then never meet again. Unless natural justice prevails and we win by 4 or 5-0, obviously.
Well, the way that football's going these days, whatever the result, there'll be lots of goals.
Well, I mean, what a Sunday that was. That was astonishing.
Yes.
And I think my favourite bit of it was, I'm not a massive Villa fan, I have to say, but obviously who wouldn't enjoy seeing that happen against Liverpool just once in a while? But at the end of it, as Villa were trooping off in disbelief, Ali looked up, looked at the league table, and she went, "There you go, 12th. That's where you always are." She's quite right. Makes you realise the utter pointlessness of football. Really, just cut straight to 12th, basically. Now, anyway, Kieran, later in the show, we will hear how Bury AFC's first league game went, because you'll remember, Kieran, we had Sani from the Out of Our League podcast a couple of weeks ago, who brutally used us to catapult his pod above us in the charts. He sent us a report from that game, which we will play later. Producer Guy says apparently I was all for the idea. I don't recall being all for the idea, but I'm just waiting for a phone call from Producer Guy to say, "Chaps, we've got some money in at last. I've decided to use it to sponsor Bury AFC." I think Kieran...
He spoke to me about that. Did he not phone you as well?
No.
Oh, okay.
We'll add that to the list. All I'm saying is I'll put it out there. I just think Producer Guy and Bury AFC need to get a room and just get it sorted. Kieran, it's news day, but first, Kieran, you naughty boy, you need to put Sheffield Wednesday fans out of their misery. And can I just say to all those Owls fans listening, Kieran didn't tell me what the news was either, so there was no point including me in your angry tweets. He just left you hanging. Said there was some news, couldn't say whether it's good or bad, but it probably wasn't good. So, and as you know, Kieran, a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans have been metaphorically throwing gravel at your window on Twitter. So, what's it all about?
Well, I'm actually going on Radio Sheffield immediately after we record this show.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
I've borrowed a tin hat. Right, the news is, and this news has actually now been revealed by Radio Sheffield. That they had first call on this, so it was only right and proper to tease that there was news.
Yeah.
Sheffield Wednesday do not own Hillsborough Stadium. That was sold to a company called Sheffield 3 a couple of years ago. And that formed the basis for Sheffield Wednesday's 12-point seduction. So that didn't really end up particularly well. And everything was fine, except Sheffield 3 have not paid Sheffield Wednesday for the stadium. So they own it, but they're buying it on credit.
Oh.
Again, that's okay. But it now transpires that a document was sent to the Land Registry where somebody now appears to have some form of mortgage over Hillsborough Stadium. And we don't know how much the mortgage is for. The ground was sold for £60 million. Now, some people, not me, I'm not a chartered surveyor, some people are saying, well, we don't think it's worth £60 million. So we don't know how much has been lent. We don't know for how long. And I think, for me, the most concerning thing is we don't know at which interest rate. But I have seen some football transactions taking place at quite high interest rates. So I'm hoping this one will be low for all concerned. So then we need to sort of follow the crumb trail of data. So the company that's organised, or the company which has this mortgage source charge, as it's officially called, is a company called New Avenue Projects Limited. And this is controlled by a Mr. Nigel Weiss, with Weiss with a W, not a V.
Yeah.
Because I know a bloke called Nigel the Vice, which was completely different.
I would have been amazed if you hadn't. Yeah.
And
I know Rachel Weiss. We're going to play that game.
Oh right. Oh well. You know everybody in showbiz. This is my big fear. If I go and mention somebody in showbiz who's a hero of mine, you've inevitably met them, and then after the show, you tell me a story about them, and it just destroys my hero worship. So
only some of them.
So if you go and Google Nigel Vice and football, the first thing that comes up is that he was he's a solicitor, which is fine, and he was involved in a legal case involving the former Watford Football Club owner Lawrence Bassini, and the accusations that was made at Mr. Vice was that he turned a blind eye to the activities of Mr. Bassini, and he wasn't on trial, so it was, it could have been just part of the pantomime that is the court. Lawrence Bassini ended up being banned from football for 3 years. And I think it's fair to say that when we get round to our Roman special, he'll be putting in an appearance. He won't be the Christmas #1, but he'll certainly be close to the top of the charts in terms of his behaviour. So he was claiming that he was going to take over Bolton, which I don't think would have been good news for the club. He's also been photographed with people from Charlton who were previously owning the club. So he's one of these guys that is around football. So that was the issue. So I can't say it's bad news or good news because simply that there's no information coming out. And I think a bit part of the problem is that there's no comments from the club. That they've been asked questions from print journalists. They've been asked questions from radio journalists, and they've just turned around and said, no comment, no comment. Mr. Vice, no comment, no comment. Sheffield Wednesday still haven't published their 2019 accounts, and we're in October 2020. They're only one of 2 clubs in the Championship to have done that, them and Derby County, both of whom have been up on charges from the EFL. So they're not helping themselves. They could come out, have a meeting, put all of the concern that fans have, and fans are, they're right to be concerned. It's the fans' club. We've always said it's the fans that emotionally invest themselves in the club from cradle to grave. Therefore, I think they are entitled to a bit of transparency and just people being spread. And there's also, and this has never been proven, but twice over the course of the last 12 months, there have been issues, by all accounts, in relation to wages, either people not getting the right amount being paid, being sort of shortchanged in terms of wages, or they've been delayed. But I think that's because the spreadsheet that they use at Sheffield Wednesday was the same one that's been used by the government for contact tracing. And therefore, there's one or two bits missing. So that's where we are with Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think it's great news because 2 years ago Sheffield Wednesday owned the stadium and nobody had a mortgage over it, and now they don't own the stadium themselves and somebody else has a mortgage over it. I've got a mortgage on my property, you've got a mortgage on yours. But, that doesn't cause us sleepless nights. So long as we pay the mortgage on a regular basis, then everything is fine. But I really think the club here has scored a bit of an own goal in terms of lack of communication. And if you're upfront with people, they tend to accept what you say.
I'm confused, Kieran, which won't surprise you. I suspect there might be Sheffield Wednesday fans feeling the same way. I know I process information differently to you, but I was under the impression that this was a done deal and they'd been punished and that was it. But I was under the impression that the whole crux of this was that they had sold the stadium to themselves, essentially, to get around various FFP. So am I wrong in that, or was that's still essentially the case, but just the names are different?
No, they have sold the stadium to this other company called Sheffield 3. The trouble is that they said that happened in 2018, right. And the EFL said, no, it didn't. And that was the crux of the argument. So the charges were on which Sheffield Wednesday are appealing, by the way. So yes, it could be that the 12-point deduction is reversed.
Yes.
So the EFL, as far as they're concerned, they've proven that it took place between 2018 and 19, and therefore it doesn't count for the June 2018 account. So we're still awaiting that particular issue to be resolved. So the ground certainly has been sold. When it was sold, that's another issue. Then to have this mortgage, now it could be that the mortgage is only for a few quid, and then we all go, oh, well, it's a complete non-issue.
Right.
But if the club just said, well, it's a £3 million mortgage because we've just gone and signed Kenneth Sahor from another club, and we needed to put a down payment for his loan fee, people go, oh, okay, it's fine.
Right. Okay. All right. Transfer deadline day came and went. Despite Sky's best efforts and Man United's dire needs, it felt like a fairly muted window, was it?
Well, it was quiet-ish by Premier League standards. It certainly wasn't a record, but I think what the big reveal was a number of things. First of all, in general, people are only signing players if they're young. There was, I think, apart from Liverpool's signing of Thiago, he's 29. I think everybody else was sort of 24 or below.
Yeah.
The other thing that became clear that a lot depended not on the club, but on the club owner. So if you are one of the billionaire boys, if you're owned by Chelsea or Manchester City or Everton or Villa, they've all got hugely wealthy owners. And there was a big report out. I can't remember, it was either Forbes or Bloomberg came out, it was either today or yesterday, and they said the wealth of the world's billionaires has shot up during the pandemic. There's been winners and losers as a result of the pandemic, and some of the big winners have been people who already didn't have to worry about when it came to buying their round. So they were quite independently wealthy. So if you're billionaire owned, then Roman Abramovich, he just underwrites the checks. The same at City, the same at Everton. If you were a recently promoted club, again, you've tended to spend a lot of money, and the reason for that is because you've got far more money than you used to have. Yeah. So therefore, you despite the pandemic. So Villa, Leeds, Sheffield United, that's fine. Then when we come to, and I've grouped these five together, Brighton, Palace, Burnley, Southampton and West Ham, their collective net spend was about 2 million between the five clubs. Now,
2 million?
About 2 million between the five of them. I think Palace's was negative and ours was negative. The others, I think Burnley spent £1 million, Southampton spent a wee bit, West Ham just about spent money. So it was pretty close to zero. So why is that? It's because those clubs are being hit by the pandemic to a much greater extent because they don't have multi-billionaire owners. And they've been in the Premier League for a few years. So therefore, it's not a case of replacing Championship players with Premier League players. It's a case of trying to ship Premier League players out, and nobody wants them a lot of the time, and replacing them with other players on Premier League wages. So I think that's the position. Overall, 1.25 billion spent gross by the Premier League. And then when you compare that to the rest of Europe, we see that the Premier League is miles ahead. Almost twice that of Italy, 3 times that of France and Spain, 4 times that of Germany. And part of that is to do with the fact that we've got these high net worth owners in the Premier League, and that doesn't tend to be the case on continental Europe. And also in Europe, that they don't have the TV deals that we have here, which are still supporting the market.
Yeah, I'm struggling to see how Palace's was so low because we didn't get rid of anybody really, and we spent 20 million quid on Eze. So surely ours is a sort of plus 18 million spend, isn't it? Rather than a...
Well, remember you sold Saul off.
Oh, of course we did. I completely forgot. How could I forget him? Yeah, absolutely. Fair enough. Well, that's interesting. Well, that's also. Do you know what's interesting, Kieran, as well? Is it seemed to me, I'm going to get in trouble from Palace fans for getting sold off, but I wasn't. I'm definitely not the only one.
Well, the manager forgot him as well.
Well, exactly. Yeah, and I'm still not convinced we're actually getting any money out of that. So it seemed to me that most clubs, Palace included, which is miraculous for us, did their business very early on in the window, and we didn't see that frantic scramble that we normally see and that Sky loves to promote so well. Is that my mind playing tricks, or would there be a reason for clubs getting things done early, football reason rather than financial?
Well, there's a football reason because the season started in September. Remember for the last couple of years, the transfer window was closed before the start of the season. So therefore, if you think about it,
Yes,
instead of having to worry about 38 league matches in over 10 months, you're thinking about 35 matches potentially over 8 months. So you want to get the players in before the start of the season. Because that's not coinciding with the closure of the window. Normally, you had to have the players signed, and then of course they've been in position to play. Now you want the players before the start of the first match, which was 3 weeks ago.
Right. Okay. Well, still with the Premier League, the saga of the Premier League EFL bailout rumbles on. The Premier League are apparently, or reportedly, only offering £50 million to the EFL, and the EFL say they need 250.
Yes. Now, I do have some sympathy for all parties here. I think that the Premier League, they're not totally insensitive, and they're aware of the issues that are taking place in League One and League Two, how those clubs have a disproportionate amount or much higher proportionate amount of their total revenue coming from match day. And it's normally £1 to £2 million per club. Yeah. So if that £50 million went to Leagues 1 and 2, that wouldn't cure everything, but I think it would certainly give those lower league clubs a lifeline.
Yeah.
The beef that the Premier League clubs have, and I think Steve Parish alluded to this in his article at the weekend, was that why should we help out those clubs? Because there was an article in one of the newspapers, the collective wealth of the 24 club owners in the Championship is £32 billion.
Wow.
So why help out a billionaire?
Yeah.
Can somebody give me a good justification of that? And that's a bit frustrating because remember we had Gary Sweet from Luton on the show a few months ago, and Gary, thoroughly good guy. He ticks all of our boxes. But he'll be honest, he's not contributing much to that 32 billion. He's been very successful, but he's in 8 figures rather than 10.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's causing an issue. So the Premier League saying, well, why should we help you out? You've spent the last decade living beyond your means. You're all being funded by billionaires, or a significant number of proportion of you being funded by billionaires. We've got our own problems. You go and sort out yours. So that appears to be the case. And on the back of that, and again, this is newspaper talk, so we don't know how true it is. The owners of the clubs in the Championship are, I think the technical term is seeing their arse, and they've been holding secret meetings, but that's what's called a WhatsApp chat. We have Price of Football WhatsApp chat meetings where all the stories that we can't put on the show go through. But that's not a secret meeting as such, and I think they are trying. One of the considerations is, do they break away from the EFL? Sign up with their own TV deal and effectively try to go solo and keep as much money as they can for themselves on the back of this, which clearly would be bad news for Leagues 1 and 2. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Well, also, have you seen the Let's Fan In petition?
Yes.
Yeah. 164,000 signatures. The one good thing we can say is at least the Premier League, the EFL, and the Football Supporters Association, who are the good guys anyway, they all seem to have come together with a view to trying to persuade the government to return to some form of matches taking place before crowds. It doesn't have to be across the whole country. There's no reason why you can't have local relaxation. Because if the government is saying to football, get your house in order, and the government is responsible for Project Restart and then you turning on Project Restart, it's contributing to the problem. Yeah,
and also, as Steve Parish pointed out in that article, you had this ludicrous nonsense that Chelsea fans and Palace fans couldn't go to Stamford Bridge on Saturday, but they could go to cinemas and watch it in there together, 2 metres away from each other. And Steve, I got a mixed response because I didn't criticise Steve Parish enough, apparently, according to some fans. Now, I think it's unfortunate that Steve Parish didn't specify that he was talking about the Championship, that he actually said, which I know to be true, that the EFL does need help. But I mean, he kind of makes a fair point business-wise when he says that if we give money to Championship teams, some of whom are more wealthy than we are, they're using that to try and take our place in the Premier League. So there is some nuance required for this. The Premier League, though, may have some more money available because they're suing the Chinese broadcaster that defaulted on its TV deal. I presume that was inevitable, Kieran, wasn't it?
I think that they had to do this because we're talking about £175 million. So, it's a huge amount of money. This is for a company called PPTV. It signed a 3-year deal with the Premier League. It was 1 year into the deal last season, and then the cheque stopped arriving. So the Premier League's trying to recoup that. It has signed a short-term TV deal, which is it's estimated somewhere between 20 to 25 million. So each club in the Premier League is going to be down 7 to 8 million. But if it hadn't sued PPTV, then you could potentially see other broadcasters say, well, perhaps we've overpaid as well. And what happens if we don't pay our next instalments? So I think the Premier League has to send out a signal to its broadcast partners. We are providing you with product. We are keeping our side of the contractual obligations, and therefore we expect you to pay accordingly. PPTV's response apparently was they were blaming COVID. And they were saying that the non-payment wasn't a breach of contract. It was only a breach of the contract in a specific and limited way.
Ah, yes, the way the government broke the EU agreement in a specific and limited way. That's a good way out of things, isn't it? I'm going to try that in an argument with Ali. He says, I did do the wrong things, but only in a specific and limited way. I did stack the dishwasher wrongly, but only in a specific and limited.
That is very serious.
Seriously, mate, she's like a John Richardson routine with that dishwasher. Sorry, that's all sounded very 1970s there. Still in the High Court, Kieran, there was a judgment this week which could have a big effect on clubs trying to claim insurance because of coronavirus.
Yes, I mean, this is I got from Insurance Weekly, the well-known blog to which I do subscribe. Do you?
I think I may have let it run out accidentally.
Yeah. Oh, right.
But I still my Business Furniture Monthly. I've still got that going. So I can't afford both in these terrible times of crisis period.
Absolutely. Business interruption insurance is where you're unable to trade as a result of something. Now, many clubs, by all accounts, and this information was actually given to me by a club owner who wants to remain anonymous. So he actually hooked up and said, are you aware of this taking place? And this actually could be really good news because many football clubs have this type of insurance. What the insurance companies have been doing to say, COVID-19, act of God, therefore not covered by the small print, we're not going to pay out. Now, the Financial Conduct Authority took a test case and has found in favour of the claimant.
Oh, okay.
So if, therefore, football clubs do have this type of insurance, I would advise them to resubmit their claim. The insurance companies, of course, are going to find some small print to try to push back on this, but it's certainly a step in the right direction, not just for football. I think for all businesses. We all know that insurance companies, why they're successful. They're successful because they don't pay out. So this is a potential opportunity for clubs to recoup some of the losses which they've undertaken, and they took out that insurance in good faith. Surely the insurers should pay out in good faith. So this could help those clubs that have done so at a time when I'm genuinely concerned that paying the October and the November wage bills could be a step too far for those clubs in League 1 and 2.
Well, the problem is for the clubs in League 1 and 2 is the same as it is with many theatres, because ostensibly this is very good news for my industry as well, the theatre and comedy industry, except the catch-22 is that League 1, League 2 clubs and many theatres couldn't afford the level of insurance cover that pays out on this. That the business interruption insurance is actually much higher than normal. Closing for 3 days because there's a fire. They can't afford to sort of collect the sort of insurance premiums that cover 6 months. So a lot of them would benefit if they could have afforded it in the first place. Unfortunately.
Yep, that's and you can see it from the business's point of view when you're struggling to keep your head above water. It looks like a cost which nothing's going to happen. Nothing's happened for a century,
of course,
and therefore you take a view. But by all accounts, some clubs do have it. So hats off to them if they get some money out of this.
Yeah, let's hope so. Now, this next story, Kieran, it's in the nature of football that it's not the biggest story, but it's probably garnered the most headlines as well. Arsenal's decision to let their mascot of 27 years, Gunnersaurus, go has caused a big reaction, as has Mesut Ozil's offer to pay to bring him back. Yes,
I mean, Gunnersaurus, by all accounts, the costume has been kept by the club, I believe, and they believe they are claiming he's going to come back. But this actually relates to the guy who has performed the role of Gunnersaurus for the last 27 years, and getting to one of those costumes, it can't be easy. It's a guy called Jerry Quay. He works in the supporters liaison office, and he was one of the 55 people that were made redundant by Arsenal Football Club 2 days after they won the FA Cup final and therefore qualified for the Europa League, which is going to generate them up to 30 to 40 million pounds this year. So he was made redundant. That he used to do this role on match days and also showing kids around the museum and just all the sort of the good things. Mesut Ozil, who as you know, I quite like stirring things, but he can. I doff my cap to Mesut Ozil. He has now offered to pay the wages of Jerry Quay whilst he remains an Arsenal player and his contract goes for the remainder of the season. People are pointing out that Mesut Ozil he's paid £18 million a year. But my view, if he saves one job, it's better than saving no jobs. And for whatever people's opinion, he is actually a very generous guy in terms of his support for a number of causes. So we'll wait to see. This is an office spat which is taking place between Ozil and Arsenal, which is taking now place in the national newspapers.
Yeah, I feel for Mesut Ozil. I mean, some players just can't do right for doing wrong. They stick their head above the parapet. They make a generous gesture. And some people go, that's a nice thing to do. And other people go, he can afford to buy the club. It's just like they whatever they do, they're going to get down from both sides. The Arsenal Museum, by the way, I would recommend any football fan out there, I don't care who you support, the Arsenal Museum is brilliant. I did a match today too there. It's really, really fascinating museum. And also Gunnersaurus, I'd say I think it's all right to have a soft spot for another club's mascot, as long as you haven't got a soft spot for another club. But I quite like Gunnersaurus because your mention of doffing my cap reminded me. It's one of my favourite football moments. There was an ex-Arsenal player passed away, or sadly passed away, as Sky always insist that we say, so there's a difference. And they had a minute's silence for the ex-Arsenal player, and the camera panned very solemnly along the line of Arsenal players, and there in the middle was Gunnersaurus with his head bowed, and the commentator said, well, he could at least have taken his cap off. And the co-commentator said he can't, his arms are too short. Which in the midst of a very sad moment, I'm afraid I reacted the way you reacted. This next story, Kieran, we have a few more stories to go before we get back to our love-in with Bury AFC. I think this story is a small story, but that will have some significance in the future because Manchester United sold more shirts with the names of Women's World Cup winner Tobin Heath and Kristen Press than any player in the men's squad after their signing was announced. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's really good for the WSL because it had to stop playing last season, effectively the same as what we saw happening in Leagues 1 and League 2. It didn't have the funds to carry on. I think there were genuine fears that all the momentum in the women's game had evaporated, and then this news comes out. I mean, we are seeing an influx of American players from the USNWT to the WSL. These are two high-profile players. I think it's also perhaps it's a testament to what's been happening to Manchester United on and off the field on the men's side of things. That these two players, Tobin Heath and Christian Press, have outsold Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes and Danny De Beek, or is that right? The new other guy that signed.
You're the Dutch expert.
I am. Yes, that is true. Yes. But also what we're seeing as far as the WSL is concerned, there's been a huge uptick in interest in it from the USA following this arrival of American players. And it looks like they're going to sign a deal with NBC for the rights to the matches. That's great. And what we're also seeing is that I do think that players in the WSL, they are very good at the way that they utilise social media.
Yeah.
They really do interact with the fan base, and perhaps this is a sign of that starting to pay dividends.
Well, this is why I think it's significant, Kieran, and this is, again, it's purely anecdotal. I think I've spoken to a lot of male football fans who love their club and will never stop going to see the men play football, but they're starting to see an authenticity, I think is maybe the right word, in the women's game that they haven't seen in the men's game for quite some time, and an enjoyment. Like my mate Chirpy, it's not an ironic nickname, he is Chirpy, is a Palace fan. His two girls, they play football for one of the Palace's junior teams, but they love going to see the Palace women play. And Chris says Chirpy says it's just a more enjoyable experience in a way. It's more relaxed. It's kind of more fun. And I think increasingly football fans are catching on to the fact that the women's game is very, very high quality, but also is more accessible. It's cheaper. It's friendlier. It's certainly better for youngsters to go and see, because even if there's no trouble at a game, and there very rarely is, it's still quite intimidating to be walking up the street with 25,000 nearly always blokes, and it's a different environment. And I think it's a really good sign that Tobin Heath and Christian Press are selling these shirts. Yeah,
fantastic. And it's good that Manchester, it took them a hell of a long time to form a women's team, but they do seem to have embraced it. There's genuine competition at the top of that league. You've got Manchester City, Arsenal, Chelsea, now Manchester United as well. And London derbies are... they're getting decent. Well, they were getting decent crowds last season. I guarantee they get fantastic crowds if they're allowed to attend this year.
Yeah, I agree. And just down the road from Manchester, Macclesfield Town Stadium, I've loved the name, Moss Rose, has been put up for sale on Rightmove.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it was quite emotional seeing it go up. They started off, I think they were looking for 750 grand. That was very quickly reduced to 500. Now, I've just been on Rightmove again, and it now says that the property has been removed. Oh. Now, that could be because it's been sold, or it could be that the weight of interest on social media and the comments has meant that the prospective sellers have just decided we want to get out of this. So, in respect of Macclesfield, they're not yet dead, but they are 4-0 down in the 93rd minute of a game. They might still be holding on, but I think we've got to be realistic that the word Macclesfield, when it comes to football, is going to have to take place through some form of Phoenix club. It was sad. It was just so sad seeing it, because I've been there as an away fan. I've been there because I used to live local to the place. And Mr. Al-Qadi, the owner of whom nothing has been heard since the demise of the club, should hang his head in shame.
Yeah, I always find it incredibly poignant when you see photographs of old stadia. But you say prospective sellers. Presumably that is Mr. Al-Qadi is the prospective seller, isn't he? There's nobody else involved.
No, because the club has been wound up, he will have lost his powers of control of the company, and now it will be the official receiver or the liquidator or somebody of that nature who is responsible for selling the assets of the business.
Oh, I see. And do they take the first bid or the highest bid? What's the process involved there?
They will take the highest bid. Everybody's been sacked, so they've got no obligation from a perspective of trying to preserve jobs. It's all about generating as much money as possible.
And presumably they've got no. I don't know what the right word is. Moral qualms about who they sell it to or what happens to it afterwards. They're not selling.
They could sell it to Steve Dale if they wanted to.
Oh Christ! And not far away from Macclesfield as well, the new parent company of Wigan Athletic has been created.
Yes, so we were aware that a deal has gone through. The administrators have been reluctant to name the new owner, but a company called AFC Wigan has been formed. Then, sort of again, doing a bit of ferreting around, I did find on one of the business newspapers that the new owner is in fact a guy called Jose Cristo. He's Spanish. I think the most interesting thing about him is that he is the nephew of a circus performer. Of a lion tamer, in fact. Wow. So that adds to the skill set of people in the EFL. Doing a bit more digging in about him, and God bless Google, by the way. He has previously owned two Spanish clubs, Albacete and Castellon, which were third division clubs in Spain. He probably bought them for a wee bit less, but not that much less than I suspect he's paid for Wigan. He's not yet passed the owners and directors test, but we're awaiting the results of that. My concern about him, and this could be certainly misplaced, because I've got no indication that he's a wrong one, of course, is that looking at his experience at Albacete and Castellon, I describe him as a flipper, a bit like my Russian girlfriend. And he therefore buys the clubs, runs them for a couple of years, and then sells them. So whether he's in this for the long term is uncertain. And the reason why we used to refer to my Russian girlfriend as flipper, because she used to be an Olympic gymnast.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she. Oh, no, I can't even bring myself to say it, but that's a new detail to that story. That's very good. I met a lion tamer once. This is a true story. I asked him what the secret to lion taming was, and he said, make sure they're about 45 years old.
Right.
Basically. So this is not necessarily a bad thing, though. I mean, if we see TV programs where people buy houses, improve them, and then sell them for a profit. So, I mean, if he's buying the club, investing in it, and then selling it at a profit, that's not necessarily a bad thing for Wigan fans, is it?
No. If he can turn the business round and sell it on a profit, loads of people do that. It is, as you say, it's the type of thing you normally expect Dion Dublin to be talking about. Is it Homes Under the Hammer?
Yes, it is. Yeah, he's got a strange. Yeah, he seems to have a strange obsession with stairs as well.
Yes,
he always seems to mention it's almost like he can't believe there's another way of getting from floor 1 to floor 2.
Well, there is. It's called a lift.
Yes, that's what you just kind of think that he's been brought up somewhere that's only got a lift. Two more stories before we continue our Bury AFC loving with a very very upbeat. I'm being unfair because it is a lovely upbeat piece of radio. Birmingham Sports Holdings, the Cayman Island registered Hong Kong Stock Exchange listed parent company of Birmingham City, have published big losses.
Yes, so they lost around about £38 million in 2019-20. Now they did recoup some of that from player sales. This is for this Birmingham Sports Company holdings. It also owns some property in Cambodia, which it's made some money from. Those are sizable losses, but could have been worse. What concerned me most of all was the amount of borrowings. They shot up hugely to around about 48 million, and this was pre-COVID, and they're borrowing at around about 8%. That's not great. But the parent of the parent, which is called the Trillion Trophy Company, it said it is confident that it can see out COVID. So whilst the losses aren't great, if it's got the cash to let Birmingham survive, and it should do, because remember they've sold Jude Bellingham since those accounts were announced. So the club should be in an okay position, assuming we get rid of this cursed disease, and let's say in the next 12 months.
Yeah. And Birmingham are in good company because Barcelona have also published their latest accounts. It says here in brackets, Guy has put, not pretty.
No. Huge losses at Barcelona, 100 million. Some of the things was concerning. The revenue was down quite a bit, which you'd expect, given the size of the stadium. But there was mention in the accounts that some commercial deals had been cancelled. Sponsors are pulling out. Now, if sponsors are pulling out of their contracts with a club like Barcelona, then the clubs who are in League One and League Two, you can imagine what's happening to them. Barcelona's net debt has doubled to 488 million euros,
wow.
But it's still committed to a ground expansion. It's going to spend the thick end of €1 billion trying to expand the ground. There's also been stuff that it's trying to force through pay cuts, which I think you can do under certain elements of Spanish law. So this could be a way of getting rid of some of those players who the club doesn't want to keep. Clearly, Lionel Messi is not among that.
Yeah.
But I also understand that the club president, he's been coming in for a lot of stick, and I think that they've now gone through the threshold at which a no-confidence vote can take place. So I think things could be quite rocky there. I mean, Barcelona, we were talking earlier about how little money had been spent in Spain, and Barcelona, I think, only signed one player this summer because they don't have the money to do so, and I think they've been trying to sign some others, and they've simply have been rejected because they don't have the finances.
Well, we have a lot of listeners in Spain. We've got a lot of listeners all around the world, so if any of them can shed more light on Spanish law, business law, football law, we're always willing to be advised, which is a note in general, I have to say. I mean, if we mention a club in your country and you think that we need more details or we've got something wrong, by all means, please tell us. We're always keen to learn. Now, Kieran, as we know, Bury AFC played their first ever league game at the weekend, and Sani Rudravajala, one of the hosts of BBC Sound's podcast, Out of Our League, was there. He's a good friend of the show, following his interview with us a couple of weeks ago. And Sani, I beg your pardon, Sani, sent us back this report.
Hello, Kevin, Kieran and Guy on bass. It's Sani here, your North of England correspondent, and I am at Radcliffe FC. And I don't know if you can hear the wind and feel the rain, but it is pretty grim. But we're here for Bury AFC's first ever league game. It's against a team called Steeton, which I've never heard of, but Google Maps tell me they are just north of Bradford. But the pitch is looking immaculate. We're only allowed 300 fans here, but I'm going to try and get around the ground and give you a bit of a flavour of what's going on today. Oh, bloody hell, I'm soaking now. Could you introduce yourself for us first off?
Yeah, Chris Murray, Bury AFC chairman.
So, Chris, first game, it's pissing it down. Is this what you envisaged?
No. I envisaged an August start, glorious sunshine, and 2,500 people in the ground. But unfortunately, the way of the world at the moment means that it's start of October and it's raining and it's only 300 people on the ground.
What's the mission for Bury AFC this year?
Hopefully to get promoted and to just basically to bring smiles back to the faces of people that have been deprived of football for 518 days.
And thinking about finance, can AFC survive with the amount of fans that are here? Can football survive?
We'd be able to survive because we've got a very good membership base that gets behind everything that we're trying to do. Obviously it's not ideal us only having 300 people in, but it's one of those things where you have to go with the hand that you're dealt, and it's just unfortunate that we can't have the place rocking with everybody in.
And I know we want to be efficient with our money, but are you still being the kit man? Are you still washing the kits?
I am still the kit man. My dad played the role of assistant kit man this week, whilst he had to wash the away kit so that we could have it ready for the squad photo for this week, because I had a chance to get it to the laundrette.
I mean, I'm not sure this is sustainable, Chris. You can't be washing the kit every week.
No, we've got a laundrette that sponsors us.
Love that. Oh, we've got an official laundrette.
Yeah. But the lad whose laundrette it is, I'd not been able to get in touch with him all week. So I just said to my dad, do us a favour. Do you fancy just washing this for us?
This is the glamorous side of being a football chairman.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like today, I had the match balls, home kit, away kit, the manager's gears for on the touchline, and all the stadium jackets, all different things like that in my car. My little C3 look rammed.
Well, good luck to us all.
Cheers, thank you
Let's
very
see what
much.
happens.
Yeah,
right.
What else?
What's your next thing you got to do now?
Get a burger.
So just for you boys, Kieran, Kevin, Guy, it's the first whistle of the first game of Bury AFC.
In your own time!
So we were 2-1 down going into injury time. We win a penalty in the 91st minute. Big Tom Greaves puts the ball down, smashes it down the middle, 2-2. And then, in the 93rd minute, with the rain hammering down and soaking wet, we're all on the edge of our seats, we get a corner. Time, Bury AFC 3, Steeton 2, 2 last-minute goals. We were 2-1 down by Big Tom Greaves, new signing, and we've done it, 3-2. I'm joined by Marcel de Matas, and he is on the Bury AFC board. How you doing, Marcel?
Yeah, fantastic.
What did you make of it?
Yeah, it's a brilliant game. Pummeled them for most of the game, didn't take our chances, left it to the last minute, 2 in a minute, you can't go wrong, fantastic game.
Now, we're sat in this stand right now. You've got a pooper scooper thing in your hand. You've got a high-vis jacket on and you're picking up bits of litter. This isn't quite the glamorous life that a football board member's supposed to have, right?
Well, if you're in the EFL, not so much, but down at this level, yeah, I guess it's what you have to do. You have to put your hand in and help with all the tasks around the ground on a match day.
What's the future for AFC?
Well, hopefully, we continue as we've begun today. We continue to win throughout the season, get promotion at the end of the year.
Here's hoping, mate. Right. Good luck with the rest of the litter pick.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, it's nice to have something upbeat, isn't it, Kieran, on the show?
Yeah, and a happy end. What a happy ending as well. We've both been to matches. 93rd minute, nothing beats that, does it?
Yeah. Can you not say happy ending, Kieran? Because you make it sound sinister.
I think happy finish is sinister.
What is it? Oh, maybe different.
Well, I suppose it's not sinister. No, but
different parts of South London, maybe. So, yeah, well done, Bury AFC. Apologies to Steeton fans who are probably fuming with us for being on Bury AFC side. But yes, it is good to hear people. It's actually good to hear people at the football. And I know you've been going to non-league games, Kieran, and a young friend of mine sent me a photograph from a game at Merston last night. And it's just really, really lovely to see people at football grounds, and hopefully the government will see sense and let us back in sooner rather than later. Now, don't forget, if you'd like to support the Price of Football, you can do so by visiting supporter.acast.com/Price of Football, or you can just click the link in the Acast app. A big thank you to everyone who has supported us so far, including, and this is not the whole list, I have to say, Kieran, producer Guy has come up with this list. Many, many people have, but producer Guy has picked out one or two of you for supporting us, and we'd like to thank all of you who have done. Mess, which I'd love to know why it's just called Mess, but Mess says I've loved this since it started. Football is a mad money pit, but I do love it, especially enjoying how the Baron rises above the Albion digs and just sticks to the facts. Well, stick around, Mess, because he'll be rising above a big one shortly, which is a phrase he's heard before. Perlo, not furlough. What a good name that is. Perlo, not furlough. Isn't it good? Perlo, not furlough said. He sums us up very nicely. It's all doom and gloom, but delivered in an uplifting manner. So thanks for that. Stephen Rickaby, hello Stephen. Stephen Rickaby says, love the show, keep up the fantastic work. As an expat in Atlanta, I'd love to hear an MLS special. They've really tapped into the culture and engaged the entire city with Atlanta United. We will do that MLS special that we promised one day, Kieran. And do you know what? It's a recurring theme from Americans and expats in America that MLS clubs do seem to know how to get their fan base going. They seem to really tap into what makes each city different, and I admire that. Simo, it turns out, Kieran, is Irish. Simo says, I keep recommending the show to people, but find it hard to convince them how incredible football finance actually is. Keep up the Twitter ranting, Kieran. It gets me through the days. From a fellow Irish Kieran and former Limerick FC fan. Yeah, it's a very sad demise of Limerick FC. My friends, the Rubber Bandits, are from Limerick. All I'll say is it's a lively old place, isn't it, Limerick?
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
It's up there with Berlin, in Limerick. Neil says, Neil with 2 L's, says, thanks for the coverage of Scottish football. It's often done in jest on other shows, but it's genuine here. We really appreciate it. I appreciate you saying that, Neil with 2 L's, although I suspect that I've probably been involved in some of those other shows. And also, can we say thank you to Mike McCarthy, Ben with 2 N's, Tony Hay, and Patrick Agaley. I apologise if I've mispronounced that, Patrick. Please let me know how I should pronounce it. I think Tony Hay, Kieran, may be another Brighton fan. Speaking of which, our final message of support comes from Dan, who accompanies it with a sort of moral maze type dilemma. Dan says, I'm looking for some help, and you two gents are best placed to help me. I'm a Seagulls season ticket holder. It's probably a helpline for that, Dan. Oh, no, hang on. That's not his problem. Turns out he's got another problem. My daughter has married a Palace season ticket holder. Good for her. She's punching up above her weight, isn't she? How did I let that happen? He says. Well, it's the 21st century, Dan. Really, she can do what she wants, essentially. But he goes on to say they've had a baby girl, and the unwritten rule of not dressing her up in club colours has been broken, and she looks very unhappy wearing blue and red. How should I deal with this? Well, what I would say, Dan, is that her mum is a Brighton fan, and it's a well-known fact that babies don't like the smell of organic honey and quinoa, right? So I suspect that's why the baby's looking unhappy. So what I suggest is you keep dressing her in Palace clothes, but you put her in Brighton nappies. So that way she looks cool and she passes a moral judgment 6 times a day. That's my suggestion. I hope that helps, Dan. If you have any questions for us, then please get in touch with questions@priceoffootball.com. We'll be back on Monday with our questions pod. It amazes me, Kieran, how many questions we get, and I'm sorry we can't get to all of them in the week that you send them, but we will do eventually, and we do thank you for it. And I pass you over to Kieran, the Brighton fan, for his usual goodbye.
Well, once again, folks, thanks for your support and the kind words. But if you could keep up the reviews and on Apple Podcast app, we don't understand how it works. I get this message from the governor, and it makes a difference, and it makes him feel good, because apart from counting his money, that's all he does when it comes to this podcast. Reads the reviews and smiles. And other than that, look after yourselves. And some of these stories have come from a variety of sources, including the Financial Times. So just remember that, ft.com/price of football.
Good work. And is there a 2-word message you'd like to give to our listeners?
Stay safe, kids.
The price of football. The price of football.